I was calmly sitting in my living room when Megan stormed in, face flushed with rage. She pointed an accusatory finger at me, her wedding ring glinting under the lights I had installed. "You are a pathetic 40-year-old leech," she hissed, "living off my husband and me for years. I want you out of my house by tomorrow." I tried not to smile as she continued her tirade, knowing something she did not. Hey folks, where are you watching from today? If you are enjoying these real-life stories, hit that subscribe button and like this video to find out what happens when someone tries to evict the actual homeowner. I still remember the day I bought this house 5 years ago. After working 70-hour weeks for nearly a decade, saving every penny possible, I had finally done it. The realtor handed me the keys with a smile and said, "Congratulations, Jayden. You are now a homeowner." At 35 years old, I had achieved what once seemed impossible for a kid who grew up with nothing. My parents had never owned property, always living paycheck to paycheck, moving from one rental to another whenever they fell behind on payments. That unstable childhood had fueled my determination to create security for myself. The first night in my new home, I sat on the hardwood floor of the empty living room, drinking a beer and feeling a sense of accomplishment wash over me. This 3-bedroom suburban house with its small garden and attached garage might not impress most people, but to me it represented everything I had worked for. Over the next year, I poured my heart into making this house truly mine. Every weekend was dedicated to renovation projects. I knocked down the wall between the kitchen and dining room to create an open concept space. I replaced the dated bathroom fixtures with modern ones. I even built a deck in the backyard, spending countless summer evenings measuring, cutting, and hammering until my hands blistered. My technology consulting business was doing well, and I had established enough regular clients that I could work primarily from home. The second bedroom became my office filled with computers and equipment. Life was good, peaceful, and exactly as I had planned it. Then Alex called. My younger brother had always been the more carefree spirit in our family. Where I was cautious and methodical, Alex lived in the moment. We had grown closer in adulthood, especially after our parents moved to Florida, leaving just the two of us in our hometown of Portland. "Jay, I hate to ask this," he said, his voice tight with embarrassment, "but I just lost my job. The whole department got laid off, and with the industry shrinking, I am having trouble finding something new. That is rough, man." "I am sorry to hear that," I replied, already guessing what was coming next. "My landlord is raising the rent next month, and without income," he trailed off. I did not hesitate. "You need a place to stay." The relief in his voice was immediate. "Just until I get back on my feet, 3 months tops." Growing up with financially unstable parents had affected us differently. I became obsessively self-reliant, while Alex developed a pattern of money troubles followed by rescue. Still, he was my only brother, and I had the space. "The spare bedroom is yours," I told him, "and I have that finished basement with its own bathroom too, so we will not be in each other's way too much." Alex moved in the following weekend, bringing surprisingly few possessions for a 32-year-old man. I helped him settle into the guest room, and for the first few weeks, things were great. We grilled steaks in the backyard, watched sports together, and remembered what it was like to have family nearby. It felt good to help someone I loved. After 2 months, Alex found a new job at a marketing firm. The salary was lower than his previous position, but it was something. I expected him to start looking for his own place, but that conversation never materialized. Instead, he seemed to be settling in more permanently, adding small touches to his room and talking about our house when describing where he lived. I did not push the issue. Having my brother around was nice, and I figured he was still getting financially stable. Besides, the house did feel less empty with someone else there. Maybe this arrangement could work longer term if we both respected each other's space. Then one evening, Alex came home practically bouncing with excitement. "I met someone," he announced. "Her name is Megan, and she is incredible." I was genuinely happy for him. Alex had dated casually over the years, but never seemed to find someone who held his interest for long. Over the next few weeks, I heard all about Megan, a pharmaceutical sales representative who was smart, ambitious, and apparently found my brother irresistible. The first time Alex brought Megan to the house, I made myself scarce retreating to the basement to give them privacy. Later that evening, he knocked on my door asking if I wanted to join them for drinks. Megan was objectively beautiful, with perfectly styled blonde hair and a dazzling smile. She was polite enough, asking the usual questions about what I did for work and how long I had known Alex, which made me laugh. I changed his diapers so pretty much his whole life, I joked. As we talked, I noticed how Megan's eyes continually roamed around the living room, taking in the furniture, the large television, the artwork on the walls. There was an assessment happening behind her smile, a calculation of value. When Alex mentioned my technology consulting business, her interest noticeably increased. "That must be lucrative," she said, her tone suggesting she was impressed. "It pays the bills," I replied noncommittally. Throughout that evening, I caught other small tells about Megan's personality. The way she steered conversations toward material possessions. How she casually mentioned the cost of her watch. The subtle disappointment when Alex mentioned his modest salary. None of these were major red flags, but together they painted a picture of someone who placed high value on financial status. Still, she made Alex happy, and that was what mattered. Their relationship progressed at warp speed. Within 3 months, they were practically inseparable. Alex spent most nights at Megan's apartment, and I had the house to myself again. Then came the bombshell. Alex showed up one Sunday morning, grinning from ear to ear. "We got married," he announced, showing me the simple gold band on his finger. "Just a quick ceremony at the courthouse yesterday." I tried to hide my hurt at not being invited, forcing a smile instead. "Wow, congratulations, that was fast." "When you know," he shrugged. "But here is the thing. Megan's lease is ending next month, and we were thinking," and that was how I ended up moving my bedroom into the basement apartment, giving the master bedroom to the newlyweds. Alex assured me it would be temporary, just until they saved enough for a down payment on their own place. 6 months a year, tops, he promised. Of course, I agreed, wanting to support his new marriage. The house is big enough for all of us. What I did not know then was that Alex had never told Megan the truth about who owned the house. The first signs that something was amiss came about 3 weeks after Megan moved in. I returned from a client meeting to find my framed vintage movie posters, which had hung in the hallway since I bought the house, were gone. In their place were generic floral prints in pastel colors. "Oh, I hope you do not mind," Megan said when I asked about it. "Those old posters were making the hallway so dark. I put them in the garage." Before I could respond, she added, "This place needed a woman's touch anyway." I retrieved my posters from the garage, where they had been carelessly stacked against my tools, and took them to my basement space. It was not worth fighting over, I told myself. Let her decorate the common areas if it made her happy. But the hallway was just the beginning. Within a month, the living room furniture had been rearranged. My comfortable leather sofa was relegated to the garage, replaced by a cream-colored sectional that Megan declared was more modern. The kitchen cabinets were reorganized so completely that I could no longer find anything without searching through multiple drawers. Even the refrigerator fell victim to her takeover. My shelf of craft beers disappeared to make room for her kombucha collection and meal prep containers. Each change was presented as a fait accompli, never discussed beforehand. And each time I raised an eyebrow or began to object, Megan would say something like, "Alex loves how it looks now," effectively using my brother as a shield against criticism. Speaking of Alex, he had become increasingly difficult to pin down for a private conversation. He left early for work and came home late, and when he was home, Megan was always by his side. The few times I managed to catch him alone and tried to discuss the living situation, he would quickly change the subject or make an excuse to leave the room. The turning point came one afternoon when I overheard Megan on the phone with a friend. I had come home early and was heading to the basement when her voice carried from the kitchen. "You have to come see our house," she was saying. "It is in that nice neighborhood I showed you. 3 bedrooms, newly renovated kitchen." We were so lucky to find it. I froze in the hallway, processing what I was hearing. "Our house, as in hers and Alex's. The backyard is perfect for hosting," she continued. "We are thinking of putting in a hot tub next spring." I cleared my throat loudly before entering the kitchen, and Megan quickly ended her call. She gave me a tight smile that did not reach her eyes. "You are home early," she observed her tone, suggesting I had interrupted something private. "Traffic was light," I replied casually. "Hey, I could not help overhearing. Are you and Alex planning some renovations?" A flicker of annoyance crossed her face. "We are just discussing options for our home. Nothing decided yet." The emphasis on "our" was unmistakable, and it struck me like a physical blow. Had Alex not told her the truth? Did she genuinely believe this was their house? That evening I cornered Alex in the garage as he was coming home from work. "We need to talk," I said firmly, "about the house." His face immediately tensed. "Can it wait? Megan has dinner ready, and—" "No, it cannot wait. Does your wife know who actually owns this house?" Alex's eyes darted toward the door to check if Megan might be listening. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Look, I was going to tell her, but the timing never seemed right." I stared at him incredulously. "So she thinks this is your house, that I am just what crashing in your basement." He had the decency to look ashamed. "She assumes we co-own it, but that you are staying temporarily. I never explicitly lied. I just did not correct her assumption." "This is insane, Alex. You need to tell her the truth." His expression turned pleading. "Please, Jay." "She would not have married me if she knew I was broke and living in my brother's house. Let me build up some savings first. Get established in my job, then I will come clean. And meanwhile she is redecorating my house and talking about installing hot tubs. I will make sure she consults you on any major changes," he promised. "Just give me a little more time." Against my better judgment, I agreed to maintain his deception temporarily. After all, he was my brother, and I wanted his marriage to succeed. What harm could a few more weeks do? As it turned out, plenty. With each passing day, Megan grew bolder in claiming ownership of the space. She began referring to my basement apartment as the guest suite when her friends visited. She complained about my parking spot in the garage, saying she needed the space for her exercise equipment. She accidentally donated boxes of my books that had been stored in the hall closet, claiming she thought they were discards. More disturbing was how she spoke to me when Alex wasn't around. Her initial politeness evaporated, replaced by thinly veiled contempt. "Do you think you will ever get your own place?" she asked one morning, as I made coffee in the kitchen. "I mean, at your age, don't you want some independence?" Another time, when I used the washing machine on her designated laundry day, some people never learn to respect boundaries. It must be a generational thing. I was 38, she was 34. The final straw came during a dinner party they hosted for Megan's colleagues. I had planned to stay in my basement apartment for the evening, but Alex insisted I join them, probably hoping to maintain the illusion of normal family dynamics. As we sat around the dining table, my dining table that I had refinished by hand, Megan regaled her guests with stories of when we bought this house and our renovation plans. One of her colleagues asked what I did for a living. Before I could answer, Megan jumped in. "Jayden is between jobs right now. He is staying with us while he figures things out." She reached over and patted my hand with fake sympathy. "We all go through rough patches, right?" The looks of pity from around the table made my blood boil. I opened my mouth to correct her, but caught Alex's pleading eyes across the table. For his sake, I swallowed my pride and forced a smile. "Megan and Alex have been very generous," I managed to say without obvious sarcasm. Later that night, after the guests left, I found Megan going through the desk in my office. When confronted, she claimed she was looking for stamps, but I noticed my property tax statement quickly shoved back into a folder. It was time for a serious conversation with Alex. This situation had become untenable. I spent the next morning rehearsing what I would say to Alex. This wasn't just about my pride anymore. His lie was creating a toxic household environment that would eventually damage their marriage more than the truth would. I texted him asking to meet for lunch away from the house, and Megan's prying ears, but he replied that he was too busy at work. 3 days passed with similar excuses. It seemed my brother was actively avoiding me, perhaps sensing what I wanted to discuss. Then came the day that changed everything. I had a client meeting canceled last minute, putting me on track to arrive home hours earlier than usual. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar luxury SUV parked out front. Visitors were not uncommon since Megan moved in, but something made me enter quietly through the side door rather than announcing my presence. Voices carried from the living room. Megan's animated tone accompanied by an older woman's approving murmurs, and a man's deeper comments. I paused in the hallway just out of sight. The previous owners had terrible taste, Megan was saying. Dark colors, heavy furniture. It took months to brighten everything up. "You have done wonders with the space," the older woman replied. "I never would have guessed this was the same house from your wedding photos. My daughter has always had an eye for design," the man added proudly. With a start, I realized these must be Megan's parents visiting for the first time. Curiosity kept me listening instead of interrupting. And this kitchen Megan continued as the group moved from the living room. "We knocked down the wall ourselves to create this open concept." I bit back a laugh. The wall I had spent 2 weekends demolishing, the dust masks and safety goggles, the rental fee for the industrial vacuum, all my work now claimed as theirs. Very modern, her mother approved. So much better for entertaining. Speaking of which, her father said, lowering his voice slightly but still audible to me, "What about your houseguest? Will he be joining us for dinner?" Megan sighed dramatically. "Probably. Alex's brother has been staying with us for months now. He is going through a midlife crisis or something, lost his job, can barely afford his car payments." I froze, shocked at the blatant lie. "That is very generous of you both," her mother said, though her tone suggested she thought otherwise. "Family is family," Megan replied with fake graciousness. "Though between us I am running out of patience. A 40-year-old man should not be living off his younger brother. It is embarrassing." "Have you discussed a timeline for him moving out?" her father asked. "I am working on it. Alex is too soft-hearted, always making excuses for him. But this is our home, and I want to start thinking about converting that basement into a nursery." The conversation continued, but I had heard enough. Slipping back out the side door, I returned to my car and drove around aimlessly for hours, processing what had just occurred. Not only was Megan maintaining the fiction that she and Alex owned my house, but she had created an entirely false narrative about me as some sort of failed, pathetic mooch. And worse, Alex was allowing it. My own brother, who knew exactly how hard I had worked for everything I had, was permitting his wife to rewrite my life story to make herself look generous. By the time I returned home that evening, Megan's parents had left and she was nowhere to be seen. Alex sat alone in the living room watching television. "We need to talk," I said, my voice, leaving no room for evasion this time. "Now." Alex muted the TV, his expression wary. "What's up?" "I heard Megan talking to her parents today. About the house. About me." His face fell. "Jay, I can explain." "Explain what?" "That you are letting your wife tell people I am some unemployed loser, living off your charity. That you are taking credit for renovations I did with my own hands. That you are planning to kick me out of my own home to make a nursery." "She does not mean it like that," he attempted weakly. "She just wants to impress her parents. They are very success-oriented people. So, lie about your own achievements. Leave me out of it." Alex ran his hands through his hair, a nervous gesture from childhood. "It is complicated. Her family has money expectations. When we met, I let her believe I was more established than I am. And now, the lie has snowballed to the point where your successful property-owning brother has to be recast as a failure, so your story makes sense. This ends now, Alex. Either you tell Megan the truth or I will." He looked panicked. "Give me 1 more week. Her parents are still in town and I don't want to humiliate her in front of them. Once they leave, I promise I will come clean." Against my better judgment, I agreed to one final extension. 1 week, Alex. Not a day more. He nodded gratefully, but I noticed he could not quite meet my eyes. The next morning, I left early for a client meeting across town. The presentation went well, and I secured a 6-month contract that would significantly boost my income. For the first time in weeks, I felt positive as I drove home, thinking perhaps this professional win would make the upcoming confrontation with Megan easier to bear. My optimism evaporated the moment I walked through the door. Megan stood in the entryway, arms crossed, face flushed with anger. In her hand was an official-looking document that I immediately recognized as an eviction notice, probably printed from some online legal template. "This is for you," she said coldly, thrusting the paper at me. "You have 24 hours to remove yourself and your belongings from our property." I took the paper, scanning its amateur legalese with growing disbelief. "What brought this on?" "I found your drugs," she announced triumphantly. "My what?" "The pills in your desk drawer. I was cleaning and came across them. This is a drug-free household, Jayden. I will not have that around when we start a family." I almost laughed. "Those are prescription migraine medications, with my name on the bottle. And why were you cleaning my private office?" She waved away my question. "The issue is not just the drugs. It is your entire presence here. You have outstayed your welcome by months. Alex is too nice to say it, but I am not. You are a pathetic 40-year-old leech, and I want you out of my house by tomorrow." Her voice had risen to a shout by the end, her finger pointing at the door as if she could expel me through sheer force of will. The absurdity of the situation, being evicted from my own home by someone who had no legal right to the property, struck me all at once. I burst out laughing. This was clearly not the reaction Megan had expected. Her eyes widened, then narrowed dangerously. "You think this is funny? Try to make me call the police." I already spoke with them about removing unwanted occupants. I struggled to compose myself. "Please, by all means, call them." Her confidence wavered slightly at my calm response, but she pulled out her phone and dialed with dramatic flair. "Yes. Hello. I need officers sent to remove a trespasser from my home." She gave the address and added, "He is refusing to leave and acting erratically." While she spoke, I walked calmly to my office, retrieved a folder from my filing cabinet, and returned to the entryway, where Megan was still embellishing her story to the dispatcher. "The officers will be here in 10 minutes, she announced. After ending the call, a smug smile on her face. "I suggest you start packing." "Actually," I replied, "I suggest you might want to sit down for what comes next." Her expression faltered. "What are you talking about?" I opened the folder and removed the deed to the house, along with recent property tax statements and insurance documents, all bearing my name as sole owner. "This house," I said quietly, "it is mine. I bought it 5 years ago. I renovated it myself. I invited Alex to stay temporarily when he lost his job. And out of kindness, I allowed you both to live in the master bedroom after you married. But make no mistake, I am the owner, not you, and certainly not Alex." The color drained from Megan's face as she snatched the papers from my hand, examining them with increasing horror. "These are fake," she stammered. "Alex told me. Alex lied to you," I stated flatly, "and allowed you to believe a fiction because he was afraid to admit he had nothing when you met." Her shock quickly morphed back to anger. "You are both conspiring against me. These documents could be forged." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. 2 police officers stood on the porch, looking professionally neutral. "We received a call about a trespasser," the older officer inquired. Megan immediately launched into her narrative. "Yes, this man," she pointed at me, "is refusing to leave our property after being formally evicted. My husband and I own this house." "And officers," I interrupted calmly, "I am Jayden Miller, the legal owner of this property. I have the deed and all supporting documentation right here. This woman is my brother's wife who has been staying here as my guest. There has been a misunderstanding about the ownership situation." The officers reviewed my identification and the property documents, comparing the name and address to their records. The younger officer stepped aside to make a radio call, presumably verifying the information. "Ma'am," the older officer finally said to Megan, "according to county records, Mr. Miller here is indeed the legal owner of this property. He has the right to remain. If there's a dispute about tenancy or ownership, that would be a civil matter, not criminal." Megan's face contorted with disbelief. "That is impossible. My husband told me." "Is your husband here?" the officer asked. "He is at work, but he will confirm everything I have said." "I suggest you contact him," the officer advised. "As it stands, we have no grounds to remove the legal property owner from his residence." As if on cue, the front door opened, and Alex walked in, stopping short at the tableau before him, his wife red-faced and near tears, his brothers standing calmly with property documents, 2 police officers in the entryway. "What is going on?" he asked, though his expression suggested he already knew. "These officers," Megan sputtered, "are claiming that Jayden owns our house." "Tell them it is not true, Alex. Tell them we bought this place together." The silence that followed was deafening. Alex looked from Megan to me, then to the officers, his mouth opening and closing without producing sound. "Alex," Megan prompted, her voice rising with panic. "Tell them." My brother's shoulders sagged in defeat. "Megan, I need to tell you something. Jayden does own the house. He always has. I was staying here as his guest when we met, and I let you believe it was mine." Her expression crumpled as the truth sank in. "You lied to me. All this time I was going to tell you," he pleaded. "But I was afraid you wouldn't want me if you knew I didn't have a house, a stable job." "Sir, ma'am," the older officer interjected diplomatically, "it seems this is a private family matter rather than a police issue. We will leave you to sort it out, but please keep things civil." He nodded to his partner, and they made their exit, leaving the 3 of us in tense silence. Megan looked as though her entire world had collapsed around her. "So all this time," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I have been living in your brother's house, decorating his rooms, planning renovations for property that isn't even ours." Alex reached for her hand. "Honey, I am so sorry. I meant to tell you." She jerked away from his touch. "Do not honey me. You made me look like a fool. All those times I showed off this house to my friends, my parents. They are going to think I am pathetic. No one will think that Alex insisted. We can explain, we." She laughed bitterly. "There is no we anymore, Alex. I married you because you seemed established, responsible. Now I find out you are just a loser, living off his brother's charity." The word loser struck like a physical blow. I saw my brother flinch, his face crumpling with hurt. "That is enough," I said firmly. "Alex made a mistake by not being honest, but he is not a loser. He is a hard-working man who fell on hard times and is getting back on his feet." Megan turned her fury toward me. "And you sat back and let me make a fool of myself for months. Watching me decorate your house plan, changes to your property. I asked Alex multiple times to tell you the truth," I countered. "He wanted to protect your relationship." "Well, there is nothing left to protect now," she spat. She turned to Alex, eyes blazing. "I want a divorce. I refuse to be married to a liar who lives in his brother's basement." "Actually, I live in the basement," I corrected, unable to help myself. "Alex lives upstairs, in my guest room. If looks could kill, I would have dropped dead on the spot." "Choose right now," Alex, Megan demanded. "Either you leave with me right now, or we are finished." I held my breath, watching my brother's face as he processed the ultimatum. For a moment, I thought he might actually choose her. Such had been the power of her influence over him these past months. Instead, Alex straightened his shoulders and met her gaze steadily. "I think we are already finished, Megan. I made a terrible mistake lying to you, and I am sorry for that. But the way you have spoken about my brother, after all his generosity, that shows me exactly who you are." Megan's mouth fell open in shock. Without another word, she stormed upstairs. Minutes later, she returned with a hastily packed suitcase, marched past us both, and slammed the front door so hard that the windows rattled. After Megan left the house, fell into a heavy silence. Alex collapsed onto the sofa, my original leather one that had been rescued from the garage during Megan's redecorating spree, and put his head in his hands. "I have made such a mess of everything," he whispered. I sat beside him, the anger of the past few months giving way to compassion for my brother's pain. "Yes, you have," I agreed, not sugarcoating it. but messes can be cleaned up. She is going to tell everyone what a fraud I am. Probably. But would you rather live a lie forever? He looked up at me, eyes red-rimmed. I am so sorry, Jay. For all of it. For letting her treat you that way in your own home. For not standing up for you. For lying. Why did you do it? I asked the question that had been gnawing at me for months. You know I never judged you for needing help. Alex was quiet for a long moment. When I met Megan, I was at my lowest. Unemployed, sleeping in my big brother's spare room at 32. She was successful, beautiful, confident, everything I wasn't feeling. When she assumed the house was mine, I just didn't correct her. Then one lie led to another, and suddenly I was trapped in this fiction I had created. And casting me as the unemployed mooch was part of that fiction. He had the decency to look ashamed. That was Megan's interpretation. Once she moved in and realized you were still here, she needed an explanation. I never directly said you were unemployed, but I didn't stop her assumptions either. It was cowardly. Yes, it was, I agreed. And hurtful. I know. I don't deserve your forgiveness. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of months of deception hanging between us. I should move out, Alex finally said. Find my own place. I nodded slowly. I think that would be good for both of us. Not because I am angry, but because you need to stand on your own feet. 2 days later, Alex packed his belongings into his car and moved into a small studio apartment across town. The divorce proceedings with Megan began almost immediately. A short marriage with no children or jointly owned property made for a relatively simple legal process. In the quiet of my reclaimed house, I set about erasing Megan's decorative touches. The pastel prints came down, my movie posters went back up. The cream sectional was sold online, and my comfortable leather sofa returned to its rightful place. Room by room, I reclaimed my space both physically and emotionally. It was during this process that I realized how much I had enabled the situation. In trying to help my brother, I had allowed myself to be marginalized in my own home. My reluctance to assert my boundaries had contributed to the toxic dynamic that developed. This was a pattern from our childhood, me taking responsibility, Alex avoiding it, and we had fallen right back into those roles as adults. The weeks that followed were healing. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during the family drama. I redecorated the master bedroom and moved back upstairs. I even started dating again, meeting a kind veterinarian named Sophia who appreciated my straightforward nature. 6 months after the blow-up with Megan, Alex called and asked if we could meet for coffee. I found him looking healthier than I had seen him in years. He had gained some weight back and the perpetual worry lines on his forehead had softened. "How is the new place?" I asked after we had settled with our drinks. "Small, but it is mine," he replied with quiet pride. "Well, the landlord's, technically, but you know what I mean. I got promoted last month, so I am finally putting some money aside." "That is great, Alex. Really." He fiddled with his coffee cup. "Have you heard anything about Megan?" I hesitated, then decided honesty was best. Sophia's friend works at the same pharmaceutical company. Apparently Megan is dating one of the executives now. Guy has a mansion in the suburbs. Alex laughed softly. "Of course she is. At least this time she found someone with the actual assets she is looking for." "You dodged a bullet," I pointed out. "More like I walked straight into the line of fire, then got dragged out by my wiser big brother," he corrected. After a pause, he added, "I have been seeing a therapist, working on why I feel the need to impress people, why I cannot be honest about my struggles." "That is really good to hear." She thinks it goes back to Mom and Dad. How they always pretended everything was fine, even when we were eating ramen for the 5th night in a row because the power bill took all the grocery money. I nodded, remembering those lean times. "We never talked about the hard stuff as kids." "I want to be better," Alex said firmly. "No more lies, no more pretending to be something I am not. I am proud of you," I told him, meaning it. Our relationship slowly rebuilt itself over the following months. We established healthier patterns, meeting for dinner once a week, helping each other with projects, but maintaining our separate living spaces. I came to understand that my version of helping had sometimes been enabling, while Alex learned that honesty, even when painful, was the foundation of any relationship worth having. 1 year after the police incident, I ran into Megan at a grocery store. We spotted each other across the produce section, and for a moment, I thought she might turn and flee. Instead, she approached, her expression a careful neutral. "Jayden," she acknowledged stiffly. "Megan," I replied. "How have you been?" "Fine. Good, actually. I am engaged again." She held up her left hand, displaying a diamond that made her previous wedding ring look like costume jewelry. "Congratulations." An awkward silence fell between us. Finally, she asked, "How is Alex?" "He is doing well. Got his own place, a promotion. Moving forward." She nodded, perhaps surprised that he had landed on his feet without her. "That is good to hear." As we prepared to part ways, Megan hesitated, then said, "I may have overreacted that day. About the house." It was as close to an apology as I would ever get from her, I realized. "Water under the bridge," I replied, though we both knew it was more than that. "I hope things work out with your fiancé." "Oh, they will," she said, confidence returning to her voice. I made sure to see his property deeds before accepting the ring. I could not tell if she was joking. With a tight smile, she wheeled her cart away, posture perfect, head high, continuing her search for security in the form of material success. Walking home that day, I felt a profound sense of peace. My house waited for me, not as a symbol of financial achievement, but as a space where I could be authentically myself. The walls that I had built, both literally and figuratively, now protected a life based on honesty rather than appearances. That evening, as Sophia and I prepared dinner in my kitchen, I looked around at the space that had witnessed so much drama and realized how close I had come to losing myself in the effort to help someone else. The true ownership of my home had never really been about the name on the deed, but about having the courage to stand up for myself and my boundaries. As we sat down to eat, I silently thanked Megan for the unintended gift. Her deception had ultimately brought the lesson that owning your life means more than owning property. It means living with authenticity, even when that truth is uncomfortable. Have you ever had someone try to claim something of yours as their own? What would you have done in my situation? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story of standing up for yourself, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more real-life experiences, and share with someone who might need inspiration to reclaim their own space, emotional or physical. Thanks for watching. And remember, the most valuable deed you will ever hold is the right to live honestly in your own life.